Hey guys, Gaming Otaku here. Welcome back to another Borderlands 3 build video. So today I'm going to be showing you my elemental crit flak build. And basically a lot of people over on my Twitch have been asking me to upload a flak build video, and my first flak I did end up doing crit flak, but I also just didn't want to do a video on the usual cookie cutter crit flak build that everybody and their fucking mother is building. So I kind of wanted to add a little bit of a unique characteristic to it, so I decided to add elemental base to it, primarily fire, to be honest, but this also can work with corrosion, and I haven't tested with shock, but like I said, fire and corrosion work well with it. So basically what's going to be going down here is I'm going to be showing you the skills, the gear, the anointments you're going to want to be looking out for on certain gear, and also at the very end of the video some Mayhem 3 or Mayhem 2 boss kills, kind of showing off how the build works. And anyways, with that, let's just jump right into the skills. Alright, so starting with skills, I'm basically only going to be running over the skills that are doing most of the heavy lifting and basically just the important ones. I'm not going to go over every skill and why I spec'd into that skill, just the ones that are pretty much important to the build, and if you want to do this build, you need these skills. So the very first one is going to be the Fast and the Furriest, which is giving increased gun damage while I'm above half health, and movement speed as well, but primarily that gun damage. And that's basically it for Stalker. I mean, these other skills I have are coming in handy, like Overclocked is coming in handy and Furious Attack, but they're not as essential as Fast and the Furriest. So we're going to head on over to Hunter. Now this tree is going to be a big and bulky one. So obviously we have Leave No Trace, so after scoring a critical hit, we have a chance to regenerate one bullet in my magazine. This is just kind of helping to keep the gunfire going down. The less I have to reload, the better, but it's not making a huge difference. As we know, there is a cooldown on it now, but that cooldown isn't making a massive difference, and Leave No Trace, we're not relying on it nearly as heavily as maybe some other crit builds would be. Then next would be Hunter's Eye. Basically, I get bonuses based on the different type of enemies I am fighting. This is extremely crucial because of the class mod we're running, which is a bounty hunter class mod. We'll get into that when we get to the gear. But basically, I gain 21% crit damage versus humans. I gain 42% armor damage versus robots, and I gain 28% damage reduction versus beasts. So where this really comes in handy is specifically the crit damage and the damage reduction, unless I'm going against an armored target, like Agonizer 9000, but most of the time we're going against fleshy targets, so the crit damage and the damage reduction is very helpful, especially on bosses. But then next is Two Fang. Basically, we have a chance to fire an extra projectile per shot. That just helps lay down the extra damage, and so forth. Most Dangerous Game is also extremely helpful because it does increase our crit damage and our gun damage when we're fighting badass enemies, which is just very, very helpful. And our class mod will also be proccing the Most Dangerous Game. Big Game is extremely helpful as well because it's boosting our hunter skills, effects, and duration, making them last longer and be way more effective. Galactic Shadow, which is just giving us increased crit damage, and enemies are less likely to target me. However, that obviously the crit damage is where this is coming in handy. And then also Megavore, which gives me a chance to crit enemies no matter where I hit them. So yeah, most crit builds you see will be going like Fade Away with Gorilla in the Mist and Unblinking Eye. But to be quite honest with this build, I very rarely even use Fade Away. I just kind of have it in case I need to reposition myself and maybe get some health regeneration, because Fade Away does regenerate health and give movement speed. So I use Until You Are Dead to give those effects a little bit extra of a boost. And yeah, so with that, that's basically it on skills. There's not a whole lot to this build in terms of what you need to build. It's still a crit build, so you obviously build into crit damage and so forth. But with that, we're gonna head on over to the items. All right, so as I said at the beginning of the video, this build primarily functions around incendiary damage. It can work off of corrosive damage, but it revolves primarily around incendiary damage. So some items you're going to kind of want to look out for are obviously, your Rowan's Call, a Hellwalker maybe, definitely annexed fire Lyuda, so ×2 damage fire Lyuda, really helpful. And then a low level hazardous sellout, or just a sellout in general. This is gonna be very helpful. As for like anointments that you're gonna want to kind of keep it out for, on action skill end, critical damage is increased by 25%. This is going to be helpful for obvious reasons. As for having it on a Hellwalker, that's completely up to you. I would recommend it on the Lyuda, but as we all know, getting certain items with certain anointments can be difficult at times. So just kind of keep an eye out for this anointment. And then another anointment you're going to kind of want to keep an eye out for is on action skill end, next 2 magazines will deal 50% bonus incendiary damage, because as I said, this build kind of revolves around incendiary damage. And items that maybe you just kind of want to get your hands on, like I said, you know, the Rowan's Call, maybe an Unforgiven if you're doing crit swapping, Lucian's Call. Embrace the Pain is pretty good because it lights you on fire, and lighting yourself on fire is pretty helpful. And Corrosive Lyuda, Butchers, etc., etc. But as for class mod, I'm using a Giant Slayer Bounty Hunter because it's putting 2 points into, I all of a sudden forgot the name of that Eagle skill, but then it's also putting 2 points into Most Dangerous Game, which is very helpful. But also we're using it for the main passive here, which is when you deal damage to an enemy, you have a 3% chance of activating your Hunter skills. Funny enough, that 3% actually procs quite often in my experience. But hey, I might just be lucky. But also, all bosses are treated as humans, beasts, and robotics, which is just extremely helpful for the Hunter's Eye skill, as we mentioned back in the skills. But then, as for a shield, nothing too important. I use a stopgap, but you don't really need to. Rain Firestorm comes in handy for mobbing, kind of just keeping enemies off of you. Like I said, incendiary damage is very helpful. And then an Elemental Projector Auto Idle. I use an Auto Idle because it does help with staying alive during mobbing. This one particularly boosts incendiary damage and mag size, which is very helpful. But we're mainly using this for the Elemental Projector prefix, which is when you're taking damage from a certain element, you'll deal increased damage with that exact same element. So the goal here is basically you light yourself on fire or apply corrosive damage to yourself with the sellout, and then you turn around and deal increased incendiary damage or corrosive damage with the Elemental Projector bonus, and it's a lot of damage. So on top of the increased elemental damage, you're also doing a shit ton of crit damage. It's just a very deadly combo. But so yeah, that is it for the gear. So with that, I want to thank you all for watching. If you have any further questions, leave a comment down below. But with that, don't forget to leave a like, comment, and subscribe. Definitely head on over to my Twitch. That is where I do most of my content creation, if not, 99% of it. And that's also where I'll be able to give more tips and tricks of further in-depth stuff in the game. So with that, thank you all for watching and enjoy the boss kills.
Where did that come from? Here, I can make an entrance. Viewers, comment into the stream and tell us how you want the Vault Thief to die. We got moderators standing by. Eat your ritual. So I'm taking yours.